Is this is this what I'm supposed to do too? Hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, yes, we are.
Hello, everyone.
Just to let everybody know, we were centering ourselves.
We're centering ourselves. We're trying to find a way not to laugh.
Yeah, yes. Kind of chill.
So,
Try, try to get a little more serious about what we're talking about, right?
yeah, just be very, very serious and professional so that we look like we know what we're talking about.
Oh, are you saying that when we're serious, it looks better that we actually look like we know what we're talking about when we're serious?
What do you believe?
Well, that's very that's great. That's a great segment because that's exactly, what it's all about, right? It's like whatever you believe to be
Whatever you
true.
believe. Yeah. Yeah. I could sit here and be like, last week I couldn't stop laughing. How did
Yeah,
that look? And get in my head.
yeah,
Or I can just think about it. What a great way to start this, to just be who we are,
yeah,
be
yeah,
in a moment of laughter that you can't stop because
yeah,
something really, really funny happened
yeah.
before you started, right? And you're live now and you can't really edit it.
Well, no, you can't. I mean, anybody that watches the recording, we rarely edit anything out. I don't think we've ever edited
We
it.
never, yeah, we never edited anything out.
But speaking of fun, if I could just take a little bit of a segue, you posted some things on Facebook that looked a
Oh,
lot of fun. Like, where was what was the celebration about?
it was amazing. So it's actually Daybreaker. It's a company that was founded by this woman who's actually from Brooklyn, in Brooklyn. And it's a dance culture that started, I think, like in 2019 or something. I could be completely butchering this, but
Hmm.
the whole concept was about getting people started for their day. That's why it's called Daybreaker. And it's still, I believe, still happens, starts at 6 a.m. in the morning, ends
Oh,
at
wow.
9, and then people go to work. And it's like there's no alcohol served, there's no drugs, it's just people gathering, like, and dancing, dancing their butts off. And the way that shifts your brain state and your energy is actually pretty remarkable. And that's kind of what I witnessed and what I experienced on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m., which, I love to sleep in on Sunday morning, especially when, I don't have my kids around. I love to get a little more extra rest. Instead, I went there, I did, yoga first thing.
Yeah.
We did like a little meditation, and then we started dancing with a full-on DJ, the whole thing. I mean, if you've seen the pictures,
Oh, no.
yeah, yeah,
There's even some guy in some kind of on stilts in a costume, and
yeah,
it almost
yeah,
reminded me like
yeah.
what's that? Down in the desert, they have
Oh,
firemen,
yeah. It's a little bit like Burning Man. Yeah,
Burning Man.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was great. It is about being able to express yourself however you want, through clothing, through movement, through dance, through showing up just as you, and not really caring about what it looks like. And it's like it's daylight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really fun. And I had a lot of things that were weighing on me this week. And I just really needed recentering. And, as like being a coach, I feel like I spend a lot of time in my head thinking and processing and, analyzing things.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that doesn't spend a lot of time in their head? Come on.
I don't know. I think I spend a remarkable amount of time in my head. And, sometimes I feel like there's only so much processing that you can do through your intellect. And it felt really, really healing and
Mm,
nice to be able to move my body and just release some of the tension and the stuck energy that way. I felt completely rejuvenated. And
yeah.
at the end of it, there was like meditation music that was being played by this very famous Indian musician
Yeah,
who's
I
the
saw that.
last,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, who's the last student of this. I'm doing a terrible job because I can't remember the names, but like someone really well known in that world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the music is all geared towards meditation and shifting your brain state. And I really, really, really experienced that during that. It was like maybe 15 minutes of him playing the music where I really felt like my kundalini being activated. Like
Yeah.
it was like a really remarkable experience. So I really enjoyed it.
So they do this once a week or every day or?
So I believe that now they're doing it every other month in New York, and they are
Okay.
doing a tour of 10 cities right now. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
moving around the US, and I think they have plans to expand it beyond the US.
Oh, okay.
So I do think they're going to Canada too.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I believe they are. So
Okay.
it's growing, it's expanding. They had to take a break during COVID
Yeah.
for obvious
Yeah, like
reasons.
everybody else did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Like it, what a notion of what a wonderful way to start a day, right? It's
it
like
was
it's
great. It
yeah,
really
yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah, get your
Yeah.
mind.
And that's a very good point because then when we got done, it was about like 1 p.m. and like we had a long stretch of our day ahead of us, but like
Mhm,
we were our energy was buzzing, like we
mhm.
were just in a very different uh just mood,
Yeah,
state
just
of
yeah,
mind. Yeah, like
yeah.
energized physically, even though it was like raining,
Mm,
outside. It was like a cloudy, dark day. Just we felt really good on the inside.
mm. That's
Hi,
cool.
everyone.
Yeah, we got Cameron from Austin. Thanks for
Welcome
joining us. Yeah, and sorry we don't know your first name, Miss Vegan from Germany.
from Germany. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome. Thank you for
welcome,
attending. It
welcome.
10 p.m. 10 p.m.
Yeah, yeah. That's late for Europe, but that's excellent. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was pretty exciting. So there's so much is available to us nowadays. And I know when we were talking about our subject, um, oh,
Hi,
Ziggy was
Ziggy.
we were talking about. I'm just going to throw up our topic today. I tried it all and nothing has changed.
Right.
And I know I'm a wee bit older than you
It's not that bad.
by a generation almost, but the you know when I reflect back on my journey in self development or human potential movement or whatever, because that's what we used to call it back in the early 70s. Um, you know, and the number of workshops, the number of books I still buy, I procure, the number of books I've read, the workshops, all those other kinds of things. Back then and what's happened now, been a fundamental shift. And I think early on, I was what you would consider a seeker. I was
Mhm.
always looking for something
Right.
because I felt something was missing in me.
Hmm.
I felt at times broken. I felt something lacking. And we had an episode on comparison. I kept comparing others, how well, quote, they
They
were
were
doing,
doing, right?
and so I felt like, okay, what is wrong with me? Like, why aren't I doing better? And so I would get absorbed into all these different workshops. I'd buy books like crazy, thinking, well, that's an interesting title. Maybe there's something there that's missing.
Hmm.
So um, that was my beginning. I'm curious about your beginning.
My beginning with self-development.
Oh, the self-development thing,
So
yeah.
yeah, improving myself. I mean, I would say that my beginning was a beginning that I wouldn't say I even recognized that I was self-developing. It really, for me, started with the necessity to have someone help me through some really difficult
Mhm.
challenges in my life. So I started with seeing therapists.
Right.
Throughout my life. I lost my dad when I was very, very young. I was 8 years old in a very tragic way. So very early on in my life, I was exposed to what that kind of work is like. But then, when I was in my teens, again, Again, I went back. I was very depressed. I was having a lot of emotional problems, a lot of depression. And therapy again came back into my life and helped me through, what I was going through. And so I feel like I was very early on exposed to that kind of mind training of really looking at things in a different way, questioning things and expressing my emotions. So I don't necessarily think that back at the time, I really sat there too much and analyzed it. It was just a tool that I used that just showed up and I felt better when I left.
Mm.
And then, and then it came back in really strongly in my life later on when I lost my husband at the age of 30. And at that point, because of the just because of how severely depressed and traumatized that I was from what had happened, I had some PTSD. I was exposed to different formats of, therapeutic treatments that were
Mhm.
not just like a one-on-one type of
Right.
treatment, was, involved like group therapy, EFT, EMDR. So I tried different types of treatments, and they were all very beneficial in a slightly different way.
Hmm.
And I think that was the beginning of my mind expanding in that sense and becoming curious. And then I went back again into what we could call these different phases in between phases of like dormant phases for me.
Hmm.
Like I did continue to see a therapist for 10 years, but it became a little bit of a habit. So while I was being, helped, and while I was like having that like one-on-one introspective type of work, like in my life, I was stuck in it. I felt very, very stuck. I felt like, well, it was more of a place where I went and I vented and I let out what was on the inside, what made me, like feel down and depressed and doubt myself and not like my life and all of this stuff, but I didn't quite have a way how, right? And I feel that at some point I even started resenting it. At some point, I even felt like, what is this really even doing? Because I'm still stuck. I feel really stuck. Nothing's changing. I'm miserable. I don't like my life. There were so many things that I didn't like.
Hmm.
I mean, looking back now, I realize that whenever we're stuck, right, and this is very much the topic of today, the stuckness is really nothing on the outside of us. Is our mental stuckness, right? We are stuck in a certain way of seeing and doing and thinking of things, right? So we're truthfully really keeping ourselves stuck, right? And
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're unable to get out of a certain loop, right? Because we're it's our beliefs, right? It's our beliefs, and the beliefs that we have lead us to see things in a way that matches those beliefs, right? So if we continue to believe the same things, we're going to continue to see things in the same ways. uh,
And that's something that I did not know for a number of years.
right,
It never occurred to me
right.
because the hook, you get a book, you go to a workshop, you come out of these workshops, and you feel like, wow, I feel great. I feel like
Right,
I can
right,
conquer the world.
right.
And there's this enthusiasm for about, I don't know, sometimes it's a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month if I was lucky. But as the time went on, there was this diminishing returns thing. So it was sort of like, okay, well, I got to get myself into another workshop because
Right, right,
thinking that was
right.
the solution to
Hmm.
keeping me at a high effective state.
Well, because
And
you need the support, right? The same kind of, like dynamic happens with therapy. Like you
mhm,
have I had remarkable, sessions where I was like, oh my God, it's all so clear now.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Right? And then you walk out and you're good for a day, and then it's like, when is my next session, right? Like when am I gonna go back, right? Like I need to see my therapist again. So it's the same thing, in regards to what you're talking about, right?
yeah.
I need the next workshop. I need to learn more. I need to know about this. I need to know about that, right? And all of that is great, and all of that is enriching. But
It certainly is but it but what really kind of threw me for a loop until I got involved with Michael Neal's work several years ago, was this whole notion that what I was looking for was somewhere out there in the
Right.
world. That
Right.
that if I got into the right teacher, got into the right program, got into all these different things, then finally I would be able to find it. But I couldn't find it. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Like just when you thought you found the little needle, um, you know, it wasn't it. It just wasn't it, and it became very very frustrating. And I found sometimes where I don't know if anybody else can relate. I just I just couldn't care anymore. I just gave up. I said, it's
Right.
like I can't keep spending money like this. I'm going to have to somehow learn to manage my feelings, my emotions, all the other things that are going on, regardless of what's going on in my life.
Right.
And then somewhere along the lines, a few things happened. And I started to look at things from an inside out perspective. So realizing that my circumstances, it wasn't the workshops that were doing that to me. It was something inside of me. And so I needed to explore that. And so the journey
Right.
really became reversed.
Right. Yeah, the workshops and even the work with in therapy, that it gives you that mirror where you look on the inside for a moment,
Yeah.
right? And that's what feels good about it. But then we oftentimes come out of it and we don't quite know how to sustain that. We don't
No,
quite know how to then continue to do that work, right? And then it becomes the opposite of what's serving you, because now when you can't sustain it, now you are reinforcing the belief that you can't change, that something is broken, that something is wrong
absolutely.
with you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you have to go back for more help from the outside, because see, like when I finished that course, I came back home and then I went back to being my usual self, right? And that's very true. There's an actual reason why that happens, right? And that's like our brains always take us back to our habitual behaviors, right? To our habitual thinking. And if you're not aware of that, and if you don't understand how the mechanics of that are, and if you don't understand what to expect from that part of the process, it's very, very easy to revert back to believing, oh, see, it doesn't work. There's something broken with me, right?
Mhm.
Instead, if you can, if all that learning can teach you something fundamental that for me really was crucial in changing the way I saw things, what I learned was how actually the mechanics of the brain work, right?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
it is very normal that when you come back, your brain wants to take you back to what it knows. Your brain wants to take you
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
habitual behaviors, because that's a lot easier than implementing
What's
change.
comfortable?
Right,
It's called the
right.
comfort zone for a reason.
Exactly. I mean, change is not easy, but change is possible if you tackle it one bits at a time, small steps at a time,
In
right?
and and point yourself in a yes, a change is possible. Like growth
Absolutely.
is possible. But when we attach to something outside, then it becomes almost like an addictive thing. It becomes, well,
Right.
I need that before something else could happen. And that's there's an author called and a self-help guru. I don't know what he actually calls himself, but Jeff Foster. And I remember I sent you a couple of podcasts of him being interviewed. He's a spiritualist, but when he talks about, I saw this quote today on somebody had posted on social media about, if we start with the premise that you're broken, then the mind says, "Oh, you're broken." So it,
Right.
it, it reinforces the whole mindset around, well, if you're trying to fix me, therefore I must be broken. So, and that's
Right.
why I started the
Right.
Unbroken Hero Project, because I said, that's crap. Why don't we
Right.
start with the fact that you are not broken, and let's work on how help you understand how things work, how your experiences are developed, how your mind works. And you'll notice that you're actually not broken. You just have a misunderstanding of different things that are going on.
You just have the wrong program running.
You have the wrong program, you're latched on to different beliefs, and how does that happen? So there's a number of different things that are helpful when you start with the premise you're not broken.
Right, right. I agree. And
Yeah.
also, I think what really has helped me and helps me is this constant reminder that the brain is a machine and it's not who I am.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a very hard, it was difficult for me at first to kind of detach myself from that concept because I saw myself as my body, my brain, right? Because your brain is your thinking
Yeah.
tool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet the more I learned about the brain and how it works and the dynamics of it and that it can be rewired like a machine, like software, you can swap the software. And the more I realized, well, it would really serve me much more to let go of that notion that it's me and to just swap that for it's just a tool that allows me to think and do and like move and whatever else, right? But who I am is way beyond that, right? Who I am is greater than that, right? And what that does, it helps us, help makes it easier for us to accept when we fall into the patterns of going back to our old habits and doing things that we're trying to change that we haven't been able to change again, right? And just see it as, oh yeah, I still need to work on swapping that software. I
Mhm.
need to keep repeating the action that's going to uninstall that behavior and install a new one more times, right? Because until then, what would happen for me, at least, and I know that happens for most of my clients too before they make this shift, is now you feel even more like you reinforce the belief that you're trying to change to begin with, and now you add to it the guilt, the not feeling enough, the beating yourself up, the self-criticism, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just really making sure, because the brain's like main main job is to simplify things, right? So the brain will do anything to bring you back to that original software that's
Yeah.
already installed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so now you're giving it all this other ammo, right? The self-criticism, the guilt, the beating yourself up, and the feeling really bad about yourself. It all reinforces the original belief that you were trying to shift,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And but the moment that you see it as, oh, it's just, I just need to swap that software and this is the way that I need to do it, and if it hasn't worked, it just means that I need to repeat it more times. You're detaching all of that emotion and meaning that you're giving it to.
Well, and I love the analogy of software, like in the
Right,
sense of you as the programmer, right? So
right,
if you as the programmer are basically starting off with a clean slate, right? So yes, at this point in time, you might have said you inherited or you developed or you created whatever, but you've got this piece of software already existing within you, right? So if you take the notion that there's really nothing wrong with the software per se, that it's
right,
more of about an exploration into the software and going, okay, this part needs tweaking, this part needs tweaking,
right,
right? Because everything runs on an F and if this happens, therefore this should happen, that kind of
right,
thing, right? So
right,
it's a yes or no, or if this pops up, then we do this, and that's how software writes, So and part of those that software is your belief systems. So
right,
when you see something surface and you start catching yourself acting on that belief, you start to, oh, do I need to tweak that belief? Is it something that serves me or doesn't serve me? That's my key. And if it's not
right,
serving me, well then I can delete that line of code. There's nothing
right,
like it's not going to change anything outside,
right,
right? So it's
right.
just really identifying where where the loops are not functioning properly, because there's a lot of things that you have learned and through your experience that actually do serve you well.
Right. But it's also just as much about
Oh,
letting go of the self-beating, because that's, you know what that is? That's the little spinning wheel that doesn't
yeah.
stop spinning on your computer. That's what that is. When you when things
Rolling,
don't
rolling.
work out, right? You
Yeah.
did your seminar, you did your course, you were all hyped up, and you hit enter, and it's just going like this.
Yeah.
after it's ended.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, now I need tech support. Now I need to go back and see what they told me to do. And now you're in the loop because you're like beating yourself up, you're feeling guilty, you're reinforcing that belief that's keeping you there. You are literally stuck because
Oh
you're
yeah.
focusing on the wheelie thing, right?
Yeah. I love the way you said the loop. Like there's a little Italian accent popped out.
Oh wow, it's
Yeah.
still
No,
there.
but you're absolutely correct. I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, and when we notice it for ourselves and understand that it's just how we operate. It's nothing wrong with the system. You can,
Yes.
you can get a little bit more light about it. Like, like we don't have to be really, oh man, I got a lot of work to do.
That right there is another loop.
It's
That right
another
there is another loop. Oh my God, this is going to be so hard. There's so much to do. I'm never going to get it done. That's
oh,
another way that your
I
brain
am
takes you
such
back
a
to like, let's go back to doing things the way we always did. It's just too much to do,
yeah,
too much work. You're
yeah,
broken. You're
yeah,
never going to change, right?
yeah.
That right there is another loop, right?
It
So it
is.
really is about getting out of those and also getting out of all the conditions that we put on it. If
Ah,
I haven't changed within the 2 weeks that it says that this is not going to work,
oh yeah,
I'm hopeless,
we want instant results, right? We want
right?
instant results, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it took us what 13 billion years to get to this state right now. It's like it ain't gonna change over like it. But you know what? And I love from the principles work is we're really one thought away from turning,
Yes. Right.
right? It's
Right.
literally one thought away, and for me that gives me goosebumps to know that is possible. So I don't know how others are feeling. Please put some things in the comment, any questions that you might have, or even any experiences you have with self-help. You know, have you tried it all and found yourself just not
But
able?
also, like self help, self development. Why are there so many things out there? Why?
There
The
were
reason why the
20 million. Like if you self-help books, there's you go on Google self-help 20 million plus.
Exactly. So the reason why there's so many different books is because not everything works for everyone, right? Because
All different.
everyone's putting out there what has worked for them,
Them.
right?
Exactly.
For
Yeah.
them. And by exploring and trying different things, if you stick to it and you don't get lost in the loop, you don't get lost in the wheelie thing, right? You can just move from one to the other or use parts that work for you and throw away the rest, right? And then find the next thing that's going to help you get to the next level, right? But it really very much is about understanding that this is a process and it's not a magic pill, right? It's a process, and whenever you are stuck, there's something that's pointing at, guess what?
Hmm. Yeah. No.
Something inside of you. It's not
Yeah.
about the course. It's not about how they presented it. It's not about what they promised you didn't work. It's about if you're stuck in any way, shape, or form, there's something within you that's keeping you there.
Yeah.
And so it really is very much a gift because it's showing you, is literally pointing at a place that you can look into, dig deeper into, and get some more insight, get more understanding of yourself
Yeah.
and why it is that you're stuck in that moment, right? And also oftentimes I feel like there's an expiration for how much you can do on your own, right? There's only so far that you can go without having a little bit of help from someone helping you see what you cannot see in that moment. When you're really in the spinning wheel, it
Yeah.
helps if someone stops the wheel for you, right?
Well, Carl Jung, who's kind of been the father of psychology, back in I forget when he actually made the quote, but he talked about others will see more of you than you will ever see because they're like when you're in the forest, that's all you can see is all these trees in front of you. You can't see clearly, and part of our defense mechanism is to hold on to what we believe to be true. And when you talk to others, and this is the brave, exploration, that if somebody wants to do this, um, is ask others how they see you,
Right. Yeah.
and it will really really surprise you. Like I my big wake up was when I had cancer, and I started to share that to some of my friends, and then they would tell me things, and I'm going, why did you wait till this happening? It's like, why I would have loved to have heard this more often, in the beginning.
Right.
But again,
Right.
you know what? Maybe at that time I might have had deaf ears. I might have been blind to whatever they were saying. I might have dismissed it as going,
You're
oh yeah,
spinning in your wheel.
what
You're
the hell do
spinning in
you
your
know?
wheel.
You're not living in my life, right? But yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right, right? It's
Yeah.
like, you know, I've obviously, I've switched my perspective a lot over the last few years. Um, but it is funny how we get ourselves caught in these webs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say, to go back to today's, the episode title, I tried it all and nothing has changed. Guess what? Step one, stop believing that.
Yeah, that's right. That in its own is a belief, right?
Yes, that on its own is what's keeping you there.
Yeah,
Because when you believe that, guess what? Nothing's going to change, right? That's step number one.
yeah,
Stop believing that, right?
yeah.
It brought you to listen to this, and that's what it was meant for. And now you can let it go,
It's an
right?
exploration. It's an
It's an
exploration.
exploration.
This is when I started looking at it from that perspective. Then it's like the Stevens Jobs speech where he talks about the turning points, like all the different pieces, right? Everything you've done to date, everything, including all the workshops, all the courses, anything, books you've read, has brought you here. All the decisions that you've made over the years have brought you here.
Right,
Whether
right,
you reflect back on whether they were good or bad doesn't mean a thing. It brought you to
right,
here, right?
right, right. And whether or not you see what it has done for you, right? Whether or not you see what it has done for you, because it has all helped you in some way. The
Yes.
reason why sometimes we write things off as like it wasn't useful is because guess what? It didn't meet the expectation that we had of it, right?
The
But when
ego's expectation.
Right,
Yes.
right. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you really ask yourself, well, what have I learned from even not getting the thing that I thought I was going to get from
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Guess what? There's growth there, right? There's growth. And it very much is self exploration, right? I'm stuck. What are the parts of me that are stuck in this? What's the reason why I can't get up and take this action?
You
What's the
know,
reason why I can't change things?
you really reminded me a little bit of being being so childlike as an
Right.
adult. Not in the curiosity way, but in the, oh, I didn't get my way.
Right, right. But that's very much how we
We
are.
we
That's
haven't
what
outgrown that yet, have we?
we haven't. That's why inner child work is so effective for anyone and everyone, right? Because it's all those childlike behaviors and ways of thinking and beliefs that we have
Yeah,
that
we
are
think we're
oftentimes,
mature. I'm mature now.
yeah, they're keeping they're keeping us stuck. And there's always a little bit of that child in us,
Well, I
in all
hope
of
I
these
hope that
different
looks,
parts.
yeah, the different
Right,
parts, right? I mean, there's the
right,
curiosity, the stick to itness that children have,
right,
right?
right.
I mean, could you imagine if I gave up walking after a couple of falls? It's like you don't see that happening with kids, right?
No?
But you see that so much in adults. I tried it. I tried it. Didn't work.
Well, because children don't have that software that tells them, oh,
Absolutely.
see how you can't do it,
Yeah.
see how you failed.
Yeah.
This is never going to happen for you. You tried it many times and nothing has changed, right? Because they don't have that installed, but we do. We do as adults. We have that, and so really realizing that it's that simple. It really is about repeating the shift, the change, the new belief that you want to install, over and over and over again, right? So
Yep.
the problem is that we just don't do it because there's all this other chatter, there's all the reasons why not, there's all of the analyzing and looking at and getting angry at the course that didn't deliver, and I wasted my money and I could have spent that money somewhere else, and I spent all that time doing this and it didn't work, right? It's constant and it's repeating and it's
Yeah.
you're rehearsing it.
Yeah.
So now you're really in the wheel, lost in all this thinking, when really all you need to do is keep doing that thing that you're telling yourself that didn't work a few more times.
Just a few more times. Yes.
A few more times.
The Ziggy said, "Karma is not coming at you; it comes from you." Very good. I love that,
Very true.
and
Yeah.
found that very useful. There was a bit. I didn't. I misunderstood what karma was until I read a book called Karma by Sadhguru. I know, haha, right? If you're going to learn something, buy a book on karma. But it was interesting to learn how, because he's from the eastern countries, and how the Western philosophies have sort of taken that Eastern philosophy and kind of twisted it around a little bit, thinking that karma was a checks and balances piece, right? So so
Right.
if I create karma by doing something good to offset all the bad karma that I picked up from doing something bad. So there's all these checks and balances. It's a show that we could probably get right into. Maybe we'll get Sadhguru on our show. Hey, there's
Yay!
that thing, right?
It's already done.
It's already done. Oh, that guy is so fascinating and funny too. But yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Or like, you know what? Don't worry, karma will take care of him. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 exactly. Like we use it as a
yeah,
weapon.
yeah,
We
yeah.
weaponized karma.
Weaponize karma, we weaponize self-development, weaponize anything, right?
Oh,
And that's really also, and I do want to speak to this, right? Because one of the problems with why sometimes things don't work is because things do get filtered through whoever's delivering it,
yeah,
right? And so it's important to also know who you're listening to, whose work you're following. um, are you putting what they're saying through your own filter, right? You're making it your own and you're misinterpreting some of that, right? So it's really, I love that. There has to be like a voice version of that. Can you do like the voice of it? Can you maybe like something like that
well,
so that we can have it on our podcast? There you
what are
go.
you talking about?
There
Yeah,
you go. We're
yeah.
talking about noise. We're
All this,
talking
yeah,
about,
the extra
yeah,
extra noise, right?
right.
So, what I found helpful in the last few years, and I'm going to give tribute to Michael Neal on this because I never heard anybody say it this way before. I've never gone to any other workshop, or listened to any book where it's ever started off with, "I want you to forget everything you've known. I want you to listen or read this book as if you're listening to music." In other words, when you're listening to music, you're not judging the music. You're just kind of listening to it.
Right.
And what you want to do is you want to look for the feeling that you're getting from it. You want to look for something that is fresh and new. Because you can go into these workshops, you can read a book, and all you go, "Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Oh yeah, that's something I've already, that's just confirming your knowledge." What we're looking for is something outside of your knowledge base. And you're not going to do that by constantly judging or having an opinion about what you're hearing. You want to look for something that's behind the words, because in my experience, most people that are writing these books are all really pointing to one thing. And when you're prepared to hear it, you'll hear it, but you won't hear it if
Yeah.
you're with a critical mind.
I love what you just said. That's such a good point. Such a good point. And we talk about this so many times, right? How we read a book that we read a while ago.
Yeah.
And oh, I don't remember hearing that.
That's right.
Did they change this? And you go check it, like, did they edit this book? It's like, it's been the same for like 30 years. Like, oh, really don't remember hearing this part or reading this part. And it's like, oh, maybe I just didn't get it at the time, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't ready to hear it,
Yeah.
wasn't ready to
You weren't
understand it.
prepared to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's also part of it, right? That's also part of, I find that stuckness is actually a gift. I think stuckness is a gift.
Okay. Yeah.
When you stop getting stuck on hating it, getting stuck on resenting it, seeing stuckness as, oh, it's just another little pebble that I need
Mhm.
to find and get rid of. And eventually they'll all be gone. And eventually that door will open wide,
Mhm.
right? So I see stuckness as that a beautiful way to really keep digging, right? And the moment that you're no longer stuck, you know that you've done all the work you needed to do to
Well,
unlock that part of your life, of you, of what you're trying to
yeah,
change.
I love how you're in embracing stuckness
Yeah,
because it using the metaphor of any vehicle, right? The fact that you're moving in a direction from time to time, you're gonna get stuck, right?
exactly. Right.
Like it snows in New York. Have you ever been stuck, right? You try and get some
Oh yeah.
momentum and then you get stuck, right? It's like, okay, I'm stuck, right? So, but there are tools, there are things you can do. One of the tools that helps me immensely is noticing how fast my tires are spinning. Maybe I
Hmm.
need to slow down. Might slow down to the speed of life, right? Which is another awesome book. But again, you don't know this until you hit the stuckness piece,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it is a gift. I love it. I love how you
So
said
don't get stuck on the fact that you're stuck,
stuck. Yes.
right? Because that's really very much the loop that keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
The fact that you believe that you're stuck, the
Yeah.
fact that you get resentful of being stuck, the fact that you're rehearsing it, right? Okay, I'm stuck. I'm so grateful that I can see that. Let me dig a little bit deeper. What about this? You know what? One of the questions that I always ask when I coach someone is, okay, now that you can see this with compassion towards yourself, because it's really
Mhm.
about having compassion towards yourself, because the
Yes.
opposite of self criticism is self
Compassion.
compassion,
Yes.
right? Now that you can see this with compassion towards yourself, let's look at what is this being stuck doing for you? And I can assure you, 10 times out of 10, there is a benefit that we're getting from that. Whether it is I work myself to the bone and I'm just exhausted and I can't do this anymore, I just need a little rest. And it's like, guess what? The solution to that is give yourself a little bit of rest and
Yeah.
then come and try again.
Yeah.
Oh, miraculously, now we're unstuck. Well, the reason why you kept being stuck is because you weren't paying attention to what the stuckness was telling you.
Yeah.
Is there to tell you something, is there to
It's an
teach you
indicator. It's a
something. It
check
is.
engine light. You have an instrument panel, right?
It's an orange light in your car, you
Yes.
know? So you
Yes.
can sit there and punch it and
Yeah.
feel really angry and
Or
start
or put
screaming and
over
cursing.
top of it and ignore it. Why is my car not starting anymore?
Exactly. And that's pretty much what we do, right? We just sit there and look at how orange it is. It's a terrible sign. They could have picked a better design for that, like it's even noisy. I don't really like that. Right. That's basically the that equates that self chatter, that
Yeah.
the loop that you're running in your head of thinking, of focusing on the fact that you're stuck, it didn't work, and this stuff doesn't work, and I got screwed, and blah, 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 right? Yeah, you're stuck because you're keeping yourself there, right?
Yeah.
And let's embrace it. Let's just be very kind to it, very compassionate towards ourselves, and be like, okay, stuckness.
It's stuckness.
What do we need to look at now? What else do I need to look into here that's not quite working? Do I even want this thing? Why am I pursuing it?
and
Right?
am I really stuck? If
Am
I'm
I am
creating
I
a
really
problem that
stuck?
really isn't there, right? Um, I what I remember when getting coached, and I this subject came up with my coach, and the talk was, well, have you ever been felt this way before? And when you self reflect back, I I remember so many incidences where I thought this was the worst possible case that ever happened. Right? I'm never going to get through this. This is like I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. Well, here I am today. Right?
Right.
And I forget that how resilient we are, because I've gone through all that before, and now all of a sudden is the worst case, or this is I'm never going to get through this. Well, my track history doesn't support that,
Doesn't.
right? And anybody that's on our listening to this, either through the recording or the podcast, if you reflect back on all those incidences, what makes this one so different than all the other ones that you conquered in the past? And you'll find out, you know what? Give it time. You'll be saying the same thing. Geez, how did I get through that? Because you are
So true.
resilient.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So, to summarize it, stop telling yourself that you tried it all and you're stuck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Befriend your stuckness and see what it's telling you.
Yeah.
Be persistent. Come back and be persistent. Keep implementing the changes. You can't just do it one or two times, or like do it for 2 days, go back for a month, and then do it again for 2 days, and then say, I tried it for 2 months. Every day, day after day, consistently. That's how you rewire your brain. And
It's
rewiring your brain is the thing that changes your habits.
drip, drip,
Drip,
drip,
drip,
drip.
drip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, believe that it works.
Yeah.
Believe that it works.
It,
Because
we
if we
wouldn't be
do, it
here if
will.
we didn't know it worked. It works. Trust me.
It works.
I was actually sharing something with Michael Neal last week, and I said to him, basically, I started off, this shit works. So I'm telling everybody, this shit works. Okay.
It does. It does work. It does work. And even with knowing that, there are moments where you and I
Oh,
both, right, would be like, oh my God, I was so stuck. And I
yeah,
wasn't I wasn't recognizing it. I
yeah,
wasn't seeing it.
yeah. We
Right.
all do it. It happens. Yeah.
So with that said, also be open to accepting help, to asking for help, to helping someone, or see it or receive the help from someone else, right?
Those are
But
the
don't
three most powerful words.
help.
I need help.
I need help.
I
Exactly.
need help.
But
And
be careful who you look for help from,
sure.
right? Don't just go to anyone. Go to someone who can actually help you, because oftentimes then we go to someone who doesn't know how to
Well,
help
and
us,
and
and
they all our
right.
friends and family, they all have the good intentions and they want the best of you. But it is very helpful to go with somebody that has no connection.
Or
Um,
it's an expert on the thing that you're trying to change.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So hey, wow. You were on
Wow.
you were on fire, girl.
I know, I got all the laughter out. I was dancing Sunday morning, and now I'm ready to go.
Oh,
We all have our low days, right? We all have, like, I wasn't in my, peak last Wednesday. Like I said, I was in denial that I was even getting a little bit sick, and I almost choked myself on my water bottle right before we went live. And like, I was exhausted. I was
yes.
exhausted. Like, my brain just wasn't functioning the way it's
Yeah.
functioning today, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Hey, it's called the bumps and the
It's called
right?
life.
It's
Yeah, it's
called
called
life.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hey, so let's take on the rest of this day and the rest of the week, and we hope you all come back next week for another subject. We're getting close to our 50th episode, eh?
Ray, and we're gonna have a very special guest for that
Very
episode.
special. Very
Very
special.
special. So
Yeah.
we will be announcing all of that. We have a few guests coming up. We will be announcing all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned. subscribe, follow us, listen to our
Share
podcast.
us.
That's imminently coming out. I know, I promised I wasn't going to announce it again, but it's there.
It's there. It's there. You can
It's
go there
there.
now if you really want to. But anyways,
We will make it. We will make a big deal out of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And yeah, we'll see you next week. Stay in stock, everyone. Befriend your stockness.
that's right. Okay,
Ciao,
talk to you next
ciao.
week. Bye bye.